I watched all 10 Best Picture nominees, all for one purpose, to find out if Everything, Everywhere, All at Once really deserved its Best Picture gong at the Oscars. So let's not waste time, let's dive right into it. We're going to go from least best, we won't say worst, to, in my view, the most deserved winner of 2023's Best Picture Oscar.
We know that we've not imagined these attacks. We know that we are bruised and infected and pregnant, and some of us are dead.
Women Talking is an ugly-looking film, and one which is seemingly just a vehicle for modern-day politics and messaging to be jammed down the viewers' throats rather than having a film of real substance and balance. The writer, director and cast are clearly talented, but this film is such a depressing take on the world we live in that I doubt it is enjoyable for anyone but those who want to believe that the world is a mess and that men are the root of all evil. A simplistic take, but then it can be argued the film is simplistic in its viewpoints and drama also. I won't get drawn further into this one, unfortunately, as it really is just a near 2-hour discussion on feminism, patriarchy, and systemic toxic masculinity, etc. As noted, there are great actresses, a talented writer in this, it's undeniable. But the grim and biased subject matter and dark cinematography does not make this a good or even enjoyable film. Nothing happens in this other than the women of this religious convent discussing whether they should leave or fight back after they are sick of being attacked by men. The title, unfortunately, is very apt, and it's clear that this movie has its specific audience. For most viewers though, unless you're into intersectional politics and enjoy feminist theory and debate, you are unlikely to enjoy or rate this film. It's a hard truth, this is not made for most people. This feels like a university sociology student debate rather than a film, and in a film that solely focuses on the female experience here, it fails to realise that when you do so and remove any other viewpoints, all it creates is a narrative, one which the audience has no choice but to accept. No one wants to be forced by anyone to think or believe in a certain way. The subject matter, had it been given equal footing for both genders and shown all sides and perspectives, so letting the audience draw their own conclusions, would have made for a far better, more balanced, more thought-provoking film. Women Talking unfortunately wants to lecture, rather than respect its audience and its freedom of thought. This is never a good mindset to have when writing a film. It is also not smart to try to present the other side of an argument within the same dialogue when ultimately its point is to just reposition it back to your own narrative and conclusions. Women Talking does this often, presenting another side only to allow the writer to double down on their own views. It feels like a good theatre production, but not a movie. It may have flourished better in that space and be less open to criticism. Theatre and cinema are different mediums. They require different things to succeed. In terms of the essence of cinema, this does not succeed, despite the performances and the talented writer. On doing some research after watching, the setup for the movie you need to know about to really understand what this movie's premise really is. And I don't think films should ever require you to read up on it before watching. It is the director's job to tell us or show us what the premise is and not rely on the audience to review the Wikipedia page. I do believe we should always show respect for the story to be told and the vision of the person who creates it. To them and those they made this for, I'm sure there is satisfaction to be had, and it was a film worth making. However, to avoid going into an extended review, it just ultimately is not for me, and I do not believe it will be for the majority of the general public either.
Sammy, we're going to use Daddy's camera to film it. Only crash the train once, okay? Then after we get the film developed, you can watch it crash over and over till it's not so scary anymore. And your real train won't ever get broken.
The Fabelmans was confusing in a bad way. I mean, is this really meant to be just a movie about a Jewish kid who loves making movies, dealing with his mother's cheating, and then moving to a school where he is briefly bullied? Because that's all that happens, and it's shown in such a cliched and contrived fashion, you'd be shocked to know this was directed and written by Steven Spielberg. This really isn't spoilers because there isn't anything that drives this movie at all, and there seems to be no real stakes to engage the audience. It feels like Spielberg was going for the slice of life, coming of age idea, but without anything that makes you really care, or without any notable character development. With films like one of the nominees Tar and say 2014's Whiplash, we have a concentrated character focus, a real and painful journey, and a payoff to varying degrees. Whilst the main character of The Fabelmans, Sam, is the focus for the most part, the only journey that happens is that his parents move state and he deals with things which are just normal aspects of life, and surprisingly for Spielberg, as already noted, incredibly cliched. Having looked up, post-film again, why I was confused, it seems as though Spielberg made a semi-autobiographical film here. And perhaps this is why it feels so boring. Life doesn't have the magic for the movies. Maybe that's the point, but it feels messy if that's what the message is. It's still shot like a movie with the usual cliches and beats, and so you can't escape that this is just a tale told cinematically. The bullying in the school feels so tired and is so overused by previous films, which again places this in the we're making a Hollywood movie territory. So are you a movie? Are you an anti-movie? What is Spielberg trying to say here? It's wholly unclear. There are very convoluted messages as well when it comes to the mother's cheating and Sam's change of tact with said mother. It really doesn't make sense. Nothing in this movie is said with any impact, depth or purpose. The closest part we get is Sam's uncle's speech to him about family versus following your heart to make art, so make cinema in this case, and how you will sacrifice one for the other. There is your key anchor for a great film. But we never see that play out. Sam's filmmaking doesn't impact his family. It falls apart itself. We never get a cautionary tale. We never get any real change in Sam's behaviour to his family. He has no development or hurdles that we believe he cannot surmount. We need to be invested as the audience in seeing the impossible hurdle be presented and then the lead overcome this. This is the essence of great drama and storytelling. The cast also isn't particularly strong, but then, like I said, the drama isn't either. Sam, played by Gabriel LaBelle, probably is the best performer in this, along with Seth Rogen playing an unlikable asshole, which just means he was perfectly cast as himself. It's weirdly boring, and at times, and I'm not sure about the anti-Jewish focus of the bullying in the school, it feels contrived and has nothing of real depth to say, much like a lot of the movie. At this point, Spielberg can make what he wants. But I think what we would have really preferred as a film-loving audience is someone to have just made a proper biopic about his life. Like Women Talking, if you need to read up about the movie, be it the history, or in this case the fact it's Spielberg's semi-autobiographical therapy piece, then be prepared for many to feel left out, confused or frustrated. And surely Spielberg knows cinema and filmmaking is not about that. So surprisingly for a Spielberg film, I cannot recommend it.
But you didn't say anything to me. You didn't do anything to me.
Well, that's what I was thinking, like.
I just don't like you no more.
The writer, director and main actors of In Bruges reunite for essentially In Bruges 2, or in this case, in Inisherin. The Banshees of Inisherin is more of the same from writer-director Martin McDonagh. This is a dark comedy starring Colin Farrell as a dim-witted but nice Irish lad called Porrick, whose best friend Brendan Gleeson's Colm one day simply decides he no longer likes Porrick no more because he's dull and bored of him. The entire drama of the film then revolves around Porrick's failure to accept this rejection and his attempts to resolve this friendship with Colm, who proceeds to take more and more drastic efforts to rid Porrick from his life. Is it as good as In Bruges? Sadly not. It has its moments for sure. You will laugh a fair few times and there are some decent shocks in here, but it lacks the tension of In Bruges. The stakes are not as high, and for a film which runs just shy of 2 hours, it feels unfortunately far too long. The cast though is excellent. Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson are great, and their chemistry hasn't faltered since the brilliant In Bruges. A special shout out goes to Kerry Condon as Porrick's sister Siobhan, and Aaron Monaghan's Dominic, who respectively play a caring sister too smart for her small island life, and a slow and dim-witted young lad who means well despite his lack of intellect. The latter is shockingly impressive. I think playing someone simple is probably quite easy, but to do it without it becoming a caricature and with empathy is well worthy of applause and acclaim. Visually, the film suffers in that as much as we all like a good countryside, I think we like to view it in real life rather than on a screen. Green fields and thoroughfare do not create a visually catching movie. Not that this film really relies upon that. The film is really about the writing and the characters, and in those departments, it's extremely high quality. However, it just doesn't have enough punch or immersion for it to be a classic. Recommended for sure. If you liked In Bruges, you will get some fun out of this one.
I have a question. I'm sorry. Yesterday, I was up on deck.
Yes.
And it was so beautiful. Everything was fantastic. But then I saw the sails.
The sails.
The sails, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And they were dirt gray. Do you think it's possible to wash them?
Well, I don't think that's possible, ma'am, because this is a motorized vessel.
Yeah.
So we don't have any sails.
Like all the movies in this video, I did not watch one trailer for each of them. Not even for Avatar: The Way of Water, and to be honest, long may this continue. I had no idea what Triangle of Sadness was about, and from the first few minutes I thought, am I watching some snooty, preachy art house film? And well, yes. The difference is that despite these elements, it's so good you forget about whatever messages or commentary the film is trying to throw at you, and you simply can appreciate what is a weird and memorable piece of satirical cinema. The film is split into 3 chapters. The cliched art house black film screen chapter split is used for each. Each part feels almost like the writer had 3 different ideas for 3 different films, but then found a way to fit them all together. But from just the point of a cohesive and enjoyable film experience, it's arguable the first part is the only extremely disjointed part in comparison to the rest. I won't spoil this movie in any way, so all I say about the plot is that it largely revolves around 2 influencers experienced during their free stay on a millionaire or billionaire cruise ship. Here they meet numerous characters of extravagant wealth and opulence, and we delve into the experiences of the haves and the have-nots upon this luxury cruise ship. The movie then takes a very wacky turn and ultimately turns into an entertaining but mad farce. Whoever wrote this really does not like rich people. With a largely unknown cast, bar a cameo from Woody Harrelson, it is all brilliantly performed, and you do get absorbed into this crazy tale of money, jealousy, fairness, and what is valuable in life. As noted, it is better not to spoil this movie before watching. It's definitely one of the most unique films of 2022, so I highly recommend this one. War films are not my usual go-to, only because it takes me a while to get into them, but when I'm in, I'm in. All Quiet on the Western Front is precisely one of those films. The film, centered on a bunch of youths fighting on the front lines in World War I, has a twist which, if you know your compass directions, then those on the Western Front were the Germans. So yes, this is a film from the German perspective of World War I, and more specifically, the horrors of that war and devastation that it had on those made to fight in it, from, in this instance, the side of the aggressors. So the aggressors are always seen as the villains, but this film manages to show that many, if not all, who fought for the German army had no idea what they were getting into, the futility of it, the evil of their superiors, and the propaganda that had been fed to them about the war itself. The movie has a suitably haunting blue tint to it which remains throughout the film. It gives it a dreamlike quality which helps emphasize the cold brutality of the ensuing nightmare, and this film is brutal. So if you like a bit of gore in your war films, then you won't be disappointed. For a film about the Germans in World War I, you may not care for Germany in its fight to win the war, but you do care about the young men in this movie and the horrors they experience. The unknown actors do their parts well. They service the story and they slowly help to immerse you into the movie. The only issue with this film, I would say that it probably drags on a little too long, and the ending, say quarter, has a lot of rather predictable plot points which drag this out of its realistic setting into a bit of a neat bow conclusion, even if said bow is bloodied and burnt. It's a great war movie and a refreshing take to see the human side of the German soldiers made to fight in a horrible war not of their making. I highly recommend this film.
If the people harbor us, they will die.
Do you understand? Look, I got nothing. I got no plan. But I can protect this family. That I can do.
I wasn't so much of a fan of the first Avatar. It was good. Cliched, but, you know, good enough. The sequel, I could have taken it or left it. But I was dragged by my friends to see it in the IMAX 3D, and there is no doubt it was one of the best cinema experiences I have ever had. So good, I saw it a second time, and it's very rare I would go see a movie twice. Visually, it is incredible. The 3D is amazing. You forget it's there, and it pushes you to the point you start to ask, why aren't all films made this way? The depth of view the 3D creates is spectacular. So visually, it's unbelievable. From a performance point of view, it's also really great. James Cameron knows how to write compelling, blockbuster characters, and he also has a knack of perfect casting and getting the best performances possible. Hell, he's made us all care about blue cat people in space. This movie, thematically, is about family, and ultimately about the experiences of the new children in the Sully family. It is handled perfectly, and we do not ever feel like we're getting shortchanged by them taking the limelight from Jake and Neytiri, the protagonists from the first film. It also has surprisingly good pacing for a movie whose second act can only be described as a nature documentary. James Cameron does force some heavy-handed environmental messages in there again, much like the first film, but it doesn't detract from the overall experience and the immersion of the film. The action scenes are incredible. James Cameron flexes his action movie virtuosity once again. It's a highly enjoyable film, but it's not a deep film. It's not an original film, bar the stunning visuals and world that is created. It's simply a blockbuster, and that's not a criticism. It's just never going to be a timeless classic, but it will be remembered as a fantastic cinematic experience. Whether it holds up out of the cinema is not something I know the answer to, so if you have the chance to see it in the cinema before it's too late, you have to do so. And for the first time in my life, I will say this: 3D is essential.
So I want you to know those New York people ain't gonna change me none. I'm gonna show you what the real Elvis is like tonight. You're looking for trouble? You came to the right place. You're looking for trouble? Just look right in my face.
I had no interest in Elvis Presley in any way, so I didn't expect much, and really, I just hoped that I'd survive to the end. Surprisingly, I didn't need to survive, as it is simply fantastic. Regardless of your knowledge of the legendary singer, this is an incredibly well shot, paced and performed biopic. Told in almost a grim fairy tale way by Tom Hanks's Colonel Parker, Elvis's shady and corrupt manager, the film has a really interesting style to it. It uses so many different filming and editorial techniques to keep you hooked and engaged. Where Bohemian Rhapsody felt a bit flat despite the brilliant source music, Elvis really is exciting throughout. Austin Butler is phenomenal as Elvis and steals the show completely, as he rightly should. This is a very clean movie though. I am sure Elvis's life and career wasn't so dandy, but you know what? It was refreshing to watch an engaging film that you could gladly watch with your grandma, and likely your grandma was a fan back then too. It's colourful, creative, and moves at a great pace for most of the movie. I say most of the movie, perhaps 60%. The first half or so is brilliant, being the most creatively shot and edited parts. The second and latter parts fall into kind of the usual storytelling and biopic style movie making. It's not a bad thing, but it means the end does seem to drag on despite the brilliant performances, both acting and musically. It's a surprise movie. I recommend it to anyone and everyone, regardless of whether you like Elvis or not. In terms of musical biopics, this is the benchmark going forward.
Time is the thing. Time is the essential piece of interpretation. You cannot start without me.
Now, this was the actual biggest surprise. A movie about a world-renowned lesbian composer. The lesbian part really isn't pertinent to the story. I just do wonder if that was the fall for the writer-director's messages to be digested by the mainstream media in a safe way. Our focus, though, the fictional Lydia Tarr, played brilliantly by Cate Blanchett, is a focused, enigmatic, charismatic, and deeply complicated character who seems to straddle the anti-cancel culture viewpoint and espouse the perfectionism and dedication to art versus the detrimental impact it may have on others. Whether her views are as a result of her avoidance of potential past sins and abuses is something for the audience to properly decide. It is these alleged past sins which form the central drama of the film. This movie asks fascinating questions and leaves it open to the audience to make their own opinion on Lydia Tarr and what happens to her. Uniquely, she is a sympathetic character who never does anything of real evil or garner much disdain from the audience, and that largely helps the ambiguity of her position, past, and the character we see before us. The film is extremely wordy and technical in its discussion of classical music and composing, which can be a little bit of a turn-off, and perhaps is just a lazy tool to hide some of the film's weaker moments. Again, this movie suffers from being too long. However, the overall story, the problems that we see arise, and more importantly, the things we do not see, what is not told to us with certainty, make this movie incredibly stimulating intellectually and thought-provoking, and it will have you sorting through its puzzle pieces well after the movie closes. Should people be guilty before being proven innocent? Who is the true user in the movie? Are there many users in this film, not just Lydia? Should passion, drive, and determination for excellence be applauded or frowned upon? Should it impact others to their detriment? Can such lofty success avoid such pitfalls and errors of judgment and action? Do we, the audience, have the full story? I would argue for the latter question, we do not. And that is what makes this film brilliant and poignant to the world we are in now, where we are guilty before innocent, where past sins return to haunt us no matter the context or reason, where shades of grey are not permitted. Many questions arise in this film which link to today's debates, but unlike Women Talking, we as the audience are allowed to determine those answers, build those discussions, and discover those questions ourselves. And the film is not heavy-handed to force those themes down our throats. It has subtlety. It requires the audience's digestion of the film in its entirety to create the discourse which likely has gone on between anyone who has seen this brilliant film. This isn't the best film of the year, but is certainly one of the most memorable, and I highly recommend that you watch this movie.
Who the hell is that?
Maverick to range control. Entering Point Alpha. Confirm green range.
Maverick, range control. Green range is confirmed. I don't see an event scheduled for you, sir.
Well, I'm going anyway.
Nice.
I won't lie, 2 and 3 were tough to decide, so I went with my heart over my head. Needless to say, you probably know what number 1 is now, but bear with it and stick to the end of the video. So, Top Gun Maverick. Shockingly, I had never seen the first movie at the time this was released. Needless to say, I watched the first one before seeing Top Gun Maverick in the cinema, so this isn't a mini review from someone going in cold. This is a review of someone bearing the first movie in mind. I actually think the original Top Gun is a better movie. I know this may seem crazy, but a character romance movie maybe just hits harder than a coming-of-age action flick. Top Gun Maverick centers on new Top Gun recruits who are tasked with an impossible mission and are to be trained by the returning Mission Impossible himself, Tom Cruise's Maverick. One of these new recruits, played by Miles Teller, is Goose's son. Goose was, if you didn't know, Maverick's wingman who died in the original Top Gun. Both Cruise and Teller are brilliant. Cruise recalls his Maverick swagger and Teller channels his character's father seamlessly. The haunting of Maverick now risking the son's life like he did his father is the core drama in the midst of the high-octane fighter jet action. We also get some entertaining cameos and fan service throughout. The movie knows what its audience wants, and it won't stop until it's given it to you. Seeing how high it is on the list, then you must realise that Top Gun Maverick, in my opinion, is absolutely fantastic. And don't take my word for it, it got nominated for Best Picture, which says a lot. Like Avatar, what a cinematic experience, what a blockbuster, what a goddamn fun movie. A fantastic cast, great stakes, incredible fighter jet action sequences. It has it all. It gets you invested, it has great characters, drama and payoffs, it has the feel-good factor that blockbusters used to give you back in the 90s and early 2000s. No politics, no reminders of real-world issues. It simply goes back to the golden days of blockbusters and says, do you want to have a good time? Then it straps you to an F-16 and shoots you off into orbit at max speed. I came out of the cinema smiling, and I believe you will too. A film that never needed a sequel gets one of the best of all time. One for fans of the first, and those who just want pure cinematic joy. Essential viewing.
Okay, sir, that's enough.
So after all this, after the whole point of the video, the winner of this year's 2023 Best Picture should be, and still is, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. So, forget the accusations of a diversity pick, to which the Oscars have been extremely guilty of in previous years. This time, the truly best film won, and it's the best by a big margin in my view. Not only did the best film of 2022 win, one of the best films of all time won. This movie is a beautiful, creative, emotional, ingenious masterpiece. And I hate that term masterpiece. It is bandied about too easily that it has lost all its worth. But nothing else can really describe the level of cinematic bliss this movie gives you. A movie that blends so many ideas, genres and styles, yet delivers some of the most emotive and thought-provoking cinema ever to grace our irises. I saw this movie twice. I cried both times. I will remove this movie in full eventually, so I won't say too much about the plot other than the basics, so no spoilers here. The movie begins with Michelle Yeoh's Evelyn Wang, who, with her immigrant family, Ke Huy Quan's Waymond and Stephanie Sue's Joy, running a failing laundrette in the USA. Evelyn's life is spiraling out of control with the pressures of family, her father running a failing business, trying to find success and meaning in her life, her fracturing relationship with her daughter and husband, and the impending IRS review by Jamie Lee Curtis's Deirdre. The film then goes from this serious, dramatic place to a mind-bending, comedic, martial arts-heavy, philosophy-laden, emotional rollercoaster ride, and I will say nothing more about what happens. The cast is simply brilliant. Michelle Yeoh and Ke Huy Quan's comedic timing and chemistry is perfect. The direction, sublime. The fight scenes are as good as The Matrix. It's hilarious, it's heartwarming, and it asks deep questions of meaning, nihilism, letting go, family, self-worth, and the value of simply being nice to others. As you can see, I want to gush about this movie, but I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to experience this movie for yourself. Don't watch anything else about this movie if you can, and enjoy it alone. We won't get another movie like this for a long time. So thank you to the Daniels and everyone involved in this movie for giving me such an unforgettable experience. Cinema exists to make you feel something. That, I believe, is the true meaning and purpose of this art form. And Everything, Everywhere, All at Once made me feel everything, everywhere, all at once. Congratulations for the deserved 2023 Best Picture win. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one. See ya.